The map of our world is about to change. And I'm not talking about China breaching boundaries. I'm talking about the continent of Africa splitting into two.
Hold onto your seat, because what's happening in East Africa right now might just be the beginning of an event that could change the world forever. A massive, terrifying crack has appeared in Kenya's Rift Valley, and scientists are warning that this is no ordinary event. We're talking about the possible splitting of the African continent itself. With earthquakes rocking the region and volcanic activity on the rise, the East African Rift is becoming more unstable than ever before. Is Africa about to be torn in two? And could this lead to the creation of a new ocean? In today's video, we're diving deep into this shocking phenomenon that could reshape the planet for millions of years. You won't believe what's happening beneath the surface. Keep watching. The Rift awakens. In a staggering turn of events, the East African Rift has shown signs of an unprecedented geological transformation. A 50-foot deep crack appeared in Kenya's Rift Valley, leaving local residents fleeing their homes and experts scrambling for answers. This crack isn't just a small fissure, it's part of a larger, natural process that could ultimately lead to the splitting of the African continent itself. With scientists on edge and local authorities uncertain of how to react, this startling occurrence marks a key moment in the East African Rift's geological history. As unsettling as the crack in the Rift Valley is, it's merely the latest indicator of the region's escalating seismic activity. In just 1 month, the region experienced 31 powerful earthquakes, including a 5.8 magnitude tremor that shook the Earth with shocking intensity. These tremors have raised alarms among geologists, who warn that the fault lines separating Africa's tectonic plates are increasingly active, signaling that the rifting process could be accelerating.
Seeing a crack that in all likelihood formed over many thousands of years or hundreds of thousands of years.
In places like Ethiopia, the ground is shifting dramatically beneath the surface, adding to the growing sense of urgency. The question now is, could this be the beginning of a much larger scale event that will permanently alter Africa's landscape? Locals in Kenya's Rift Valley have already begun reporting signs of shifting land, with some areas sinking or rising unexpectedly. This unsettling phenomenon isn't just about a few cracks. It's a clear sign that tectonic forces are at work, slowly but steadily pulling the African continent apart. And, as disturbing as it may sound, this rifting process is only the beginning. Geologists speculate that within millions of years, a new ocean could form right where the Rift Valley currently lies, splitting East Africa away from the rest of the continent. As this seismic activity continues to intensify, the region's future looks more uncertain than ever. What happens next could not only change Africa's geography, but also affect global climate, sea levels, and ecosystems in ways we've never imagined. The larger implications of this event are staggering. If the continent does eventually split, it would be an event on par with the breaking apart of ancient supercontinents, like Pangaea. While this transformation is a long-term process that will unfold over millions of years, the rising frequency of seismic activity suggests that the region's geological history is speeding up in ways no one could have predicted. Scientists are racing to better understand the forces at work in East Africa, and the crack in Kenya is just the latest warning sign of a world-changing event in the making. Could this be the beginning of the end for Africa as we know it? And with that, you might want to keep your eyes on East Africa. With new cracks appearing and earthquakes shaking the ground, this could be just the tip of the iceberg. What comes next may be far more dramatic than we can even imagine. The sign of a bigger shift. Over the past few months, East Africa has experienced an unnerving surge in seismic activity. The region has been rocked by 31 earthquakes, the most significant being a 5.8 magnitude tremor that reverberated across Kenya and Ethiopia. This intense shaking has raised concerns about the stability of the East African Rift, and scientists are beginning to fear that the rifting process is speeding up. Earthquakes like these are not just random occurrences. They're signals that the tectonic plates in this region are becoming increasingly active, threatening to rupture the land beneath them. The East African Rift is one of the most geologically active regions on Earth, and it has been pulling Africa apart for millions of years. The rift stretches over 3,000 kilometers, marking the boundary between two tectonic plates, the Nubian and Somalian plates. These plates are slowly drifting away from each other, causing frequent earthquakes and volcanic eruptions in the region. Scientists know that this process will eventually lead to the formation of a new ocean, but what they didn't expect was the rapid pace at which these seismic events are occurring. The recent surge in earthquakes, including the powerful tremors in Ethiopia near the Fentale volcano, has scientists on edge, as it suggests that the pressure beneath the surface is mounting faster than anticipated.
The Afar Triangle is a region known for its scorching heat and harsh volcanic landscapes. Beneath the surface,
in addition to the earthquakes, the threat of volcanic eruptions is becoming a major concern. The Fentale volcano, located in Ethiopia, has shown signs of increased activity, with frequent tremors indicating that magma is rising beneath the surface. The last eruption of this volcano occurred in 1820, but experts warn that the buildup of pressure beneath the crust could lead to another catastrophic eruption. The presence of magma beneath the surface is just one indication that the region is becoming more unstable by the day. If the volcano does erupt, the consequences could be disastrous, not just for the millions living near the rift, but for the entire region. As seismic activity intensifies, the people of East Africa are facing an uncertain future. With the potential for larger earthquakes, landslides, and volcanic eruptions, the region is increasingly vulnerable to natural disasters. The rise in volcanic activity, combined with the growing frequency of earthquakes, paints a troubling picture for the people living near these unstable areas. With each tremor, the rift becomes a little more unpredictable, leaving both scientists and residents wondering, how long can this last before something catastrophic happens?
The land was softened by a combination of heavy rains and seismic activity, causing the earth to split.
It's not just the people of East Africa who should be worried. These seismic events have far-reaching implications for the entire world. The ongoing transformation of the East African rift could eventually lead to the formation of a new ocean.
A massive crack that's up to 50 feet deep suddenly opened up in the ground in Africa,
permanently altering Africa's geography. And while this process may take millions of years, the current increase in seismic activity suggests that the region's future is unfolding faster than we ever expected. The questions remain: how will this affect the global climate? What will the new landscape look like? And most importantly, how can the people of East Africa prepare for what's to come? The creation of a new ocean. What if we told you that Africa, as we know it, is slowly splitting into two? The East African rift, which has been steadily pulling apart the continent for millions of years, is now showing signs of a dramatic acceleration. Scientists believe that over the next 5 to 10 million years, the rift could widen enough to create a new ocean, splitting East Africa from the rest of the continent. While this process is still in its early stages, the recent surge in seismic activity,
it comes after months of heightened seismic activity. This activity intensified late last year, culminating in a 5.0 magnitude earthquake on December 29,
has made it clear that we're witnessing a monumental event in real time. The signs of Africa's eventual split are already visible. Massive cracks have appeared in the Rift Valley, and seismic activity has been ramping up, with 31 earthquakes occurring in just 1 month. These powerful quakes, combined with volcanic eruptions, point to a rapidly evolving geological event in Ethiopia's Afar region, where 3 tectonic plates meet. The ground is becoming more unstable.
Ethiopia's remote Afar region, hot mud and steam jets out of geysers near Mount Dauphin.
And scientists are closely monitoring the region for any signs of further rifting. The East African rift could eventually flood, leading to the creation of a new ocean and permanently altering the geography of the region. Scientists predict that as the rift continues to widen, water from the Red Sea and Gulf of Aden will begin to flow into the valley, further accelerating the process of splitting the land. Eventually, parts of East Africa, such as Ethiopia, Kenya, and Tanzania, could break away from the mainland, forming an island.
A massive crack in the ground that's estimated to be up to 50 feet deep has opened up in Kenya seemingly overnight.
This is no longer just a theoretical concept. It's happening right now. The accelerating pace of seismic activity in the region is proof that the Earth's crust is weakening and that Africa's eventual split is fast approaching. The idea of a new ocean emerging in East Africa might sound like something out of a sci-fi movie, but it's happening in front of our eyes. As the tectonic plates continue to shift, scientists predict that a new landmass will form, creating a future world that looks radically different from today. Imagine a new coastline, a new sea, and a transformed environment. The process will take millions of years, but the signs are already here. Africa is undergoing a transformation that will change its geography, climate, and ecosystems in ways we can only begin to understand. And so the question remains, will we be around to witness the creation of a new ocean? While that may be a far-off reality, the immediate future is just as important. The people of East Africa are facing a rapidly changing landscape, and scientists are working hard to understand the implications of these seismic events. With each passing day, the continent's future is becoming more uncertain, and we are left to wonder just how much longer it will take before the East African rift becomes the new ocean it's destined to be. A time bomb. Beneath the surface. Beneath the seismic activity and cracks in the ground, there lies a hidden threat that could change everything. Volcanoes. The East African rift is not just a fissure in the Earth's crust. It's a hotspot for volcanic activity, with several active volcanoes, including Fentale in Ethiopia. The increasing seismic activity is linked to rising magma beneath the surface, and the risk of eruption is growing by the day. These volcanoes are ticking time bombs, capable of unleashing devastating lava flows, ash clouds, and other hazards that could affect millions of people. Fentale volcano, in particular, has scientists on edge. With magma rising beneath the surface, the risk of a major eruption is becoming more likely. Fentale last erupted in 1820, but experts warn that the pressure building beneath the volcano could lead to another catastrophic eruption in the near future. If this volcano erupts, it could release massive amounts of ash and lava, destroying towns and agriculture in its path. The consequences would be felt far beyond the Rift Valley, potentially disrupting global climate patterns and causing widespread devastation. Scientists are closely monitoring the situation, using satellite data and GPS measurements to track the movement of magma beneath the volcano. However, the lack of a dedicated seismic monitoring network in the region makes it difficult to accurately predict when an eruption will occur. This uncertainty adds to the growing anxiety about the future of the Rift Valley and the surrounding areas. While scientists can estimate the likelihood of an eruption, the exact timing remains elusive. This makes it harder for authorities and local communities to prepare for the worst. In addition to the threat of volcanic eruptions, the region's frequent earthquakes are also contributing to the destabilization of the land. As the tectonic plates continue to shift, the land is becoming more prone to landslides, ground collapses, and other geological hazards. The recent appearance of massive cracks in the Rift Valley is a clear indication that the land is under immense pressure. The combination of seismic activity, volcanic eruptions, and geological instability makes the East African Rift one of the most dangerous and unpredictable regions on the planet. As volcanic activity continues to rise, the people of East Africa are living in the shadow of uncertainty. The threat of eruptions, earthquakes, and land shifts looms large, and it's only a matter of time before one of these events causes widespread destruction. Scientists are working tirelessly to understand the forces at play in the Rift Valley. How long can this volatile region hold out before something catastrophic happens? A new world on the horizon. The East African Rift is a reminder of how dynamic and unpredictable the Earth's surface can be. What was once thought to be a slow and gradual process of land separation is now accelerating at an alarming rate. The geological activity in the Rift Valley is growing more intense with every passing day, and the prospect of a new ocean splitting East Africa from the rest of the continent is becoming a real possibility. This new world on the horizon could be a future where entire countries are divided by water, creating new ecosystems, coastlines, and climates. The rifting process, while still in its early stages, is progressing at a much faster pace than anyone expected. The recent surge in seismic activity, combined with volcanic eruptions, is making it clear that the geological changes in East Africa are happening now, not millions of years from now. As scientists continue to monitor the situation, they're discovering that the process of land separation is occurring faster than predicted. This could have profound implications, not just for Africa, but for the entire world. The creation of a new ocean in East Africa would dramatically reshape the continent's geography, climate, and biodiversity. It's hard to imagine, but in millions of years, the Rift Valley could be filled with water, creating a massive body of ocean that separates East Africa from the rest of the continent. This would not only change the physical landscape, but could also have a profound impact on global weather patterns, ocean currents, and ecosystems. It's a transformation on a scale that few could have predicted, and yet it's happening before our eyes. As the rift continues to widen and the seismic activity increases, the people of East Africa will face an uncertain future. With earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and landslides becoming more common, the region will need to prepare for the challenges ahead. But beyond the immediate threats lies the bigger picture, a dramatic transformation that could reshape the African continent forever. How will the world adapt to this monumental shift in the Earth's geography? And what will the future hold for the people living in the East African Rift? In the end, the East African Rift offers a rare and dramatic glimpse into the future of our planet. It serves as a stark reminder that the Earth is constantly evolving, and the landscape we know today may look very different in the years to come. The transformation of East Africa is just beginning, and its eventual split from the rest of the continent could mark the dawn of a new era in the history of the Earth. The impact of a splitting continent on global trade. The seismic shifts occurring in East Africa aren't just shaking the land, they could have far-reaching impacts on global trade. The Rift Valley is a critical corridor for transportation and commerce in the region. Cities like Addis Ababa, Metahara, and Awash are major hubs for goods and services, and any disruption in the infrastructure could send shockwaves throughout the African economy. Roads, railways, and ports are vulnerable to the ongoing earthquakes, volcanic activity, and ground fissures, creating a huge risk for businesses and governments. If the rift continues to widen, we could see entire trade routes blocked, creating shortages and economic instability not only in East Africa, but across the world. The destruction of vital infrastructure could be especially damaging to countries like Ethiopia, Kenya, and Tanzania, whose economies are heavily reliant on agriculture and trade. If the rift continues to widen and significant fissures form, the ability to transport goods to and from key markets could be significantly hindered. Additionally, if the eventual split of East Africa from the mainland leads to the creation of a new coastline, it could bring about dramatic changes to the shipping routes that have long connected these nations to the global economy. The reshaping of Africa's coastlines and the formation of new trade routes could take decades, but the immediate risks are undeniable. The clock is ticking, and East Africa's economic future is in a fragile state as it faces this monumental geological transformation. While we're still witnessing the initial stages of the rift's expansion, these disruptions could ripple across the continent and affect global markets. If East Africa's economic centers are hit by larger tremors or volcanic eruptions, the aftermath could be devastating. It's a harsh reality that has many governments and international organizations nervously preparing for the possibility of a sudden breakdown in trade and supply chains. As East Africa splits from the mainland, nations might have to reconfigure their plans for regional cooperation and integration. Will the countries in the Rift Valley be able to weather the economic storm ahead, or will the forces of nature pull them into a new world that leaves their old ways of life behind? And yet, in all of this chaos, there's a glimmer of hope that East Africa's transformation could eventually lead to new opportunities. Could the creation of a new island be the dawn of a new economic powerhouse? As the rift continues to widen, We might see new industries rise from the ashes of the old. But for now, the region's future remains uncertain, and the global trade system is on high alert, waiting to see what happens next. Adapting to a changing environment. As the East African Rift continues to evolve, so too will the environment surrounding it, with the potential for massive land shifts, volcanic eruptions, and new water bodies to form. The environment in East Africa will undergo drastic changes. This raises significant concerns about the survival of the region's ecosystems and wildlife. East Africa is home to some of the world's most unique species, including rare plants, animals, and marine life. However, as the rift continues to widen and floodwaters rise, many of these ecosystems could be devastated, forcing species to either adapt or face extinction. The formation of a new ocean, if it were to happen, could change the climate patterns across East Africa, affecting rainfall, temperature, and overall biodiversity. Entire ecosystems could be altered as the water level rises in the Rift Valley and begins to flood the depression. Could this newfound ocean become a breeding ground for new marine life, or will it disrupt the fragile balance of the current ecosystems in the region? The environmental consequences of the Rift's ongoing transformation could be far-reaching, not just for Africa, but for the planet as a whole. Agriculture, which is vital to the livelihoods of millions in the Rift Valley, is already at risk due to the seismic activity and potential volcanic eruptions. If the land begins to fracture and sink, crops and livestock could be displaced or destroyed, leading to widespread food shortages. The immediate economic and social impacts of such changes would be devastating for the people who depend on the land for survival. However, as with many other natural disasters, human resilience and ingenuity could lead to new solutions. Will local communities be able to adapt to this changing landscape, or will they be forced to relocate and start anew? The next few decades will likely tell the story of East Africa's battle for survival as its environment transforms before its eyes. The rapid pace of change means that the region will need to adapt quickly if it hopes to maintain a sustainable way of life. While the threat of environmental collapse looms large, there is also the potential for new opportunities to emerge. The creation of a new ocean and the possibility of an isolated East African island could open up new frontiers for conservation, marine life research, and sustainable development. In the face of all this uncertainty, one thing is clear: the future of East Africa will be shaped by its ability to adapt and evolve in response to the Earth's ever-changing nature. Chapter 8: Preparing for the Unpredictable. As the East African Rift continues to widen and earthquake activity becomes more frequent, the people of the region are left with one pressing question: how do we prepare for what's coming next? The unpredictability of seismic activity and volcanic eruptions has left East Africa in a precarious situation. While scientists have long studied the rift, the rapid pace of recent changes has caught many by surprise. Without the proper seismic monitoring systems in place, it's difficult to predict when or where the next major event will occur. The lack of localized monitoring infrastructure has compounded the uncertainty surrounding the rift's progression, and the people living near these active fault lines are left to wonder how much longer they can rely on global data and satellite imagery to keep them informed. In a region where seismic activity is an everyday reality, preparedness becomes the key to survival. The recent earthquakes and volcanic activity have made it clear that East Africa is facing an uncertain future. Governments and international organizations are scrambling to bolster disaster preparedness efforts, but the challenges are immense. As towns like Metahara and Awash continue to experience tremors, local authorities must find ways to better educate and equip residents to deal with the ever-present threat of earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. Without better preparedness, millions of people could be left vulnerable to the catastrophic consequences of a major seismic event. In the midst of these challenges, the international community has a responsibility to assist East Africa in building a more resilient future. Will the world rally behind these efforts, or will East Africa's struggles be left to fester in the face of a rapidly changing environment? The time to act is now. The clock is ticking, and the geological forces shaping the East African Rift are unstoppable as seismic activity continues to increase. Will East Africa be ready for the devastation ahead, or will it be caught off guard by the catastrophic changes coming its way? A new dawn for East Africa's geopolitical landscape. As East Africa undergoes its seismic transformation, the geopolitical landscape will also shift in unexpected ways. Countries that were once tightly bound by shared geography and common borders could find themselves facing new challenges and opportunities. If the rift continues to widen and the continent starts to split, the region could be looking at entirely new countries formed along these newly developed coastlines. This new separation might present both cooperation and competition among neighboring nations as they adapt to their rapidly changing environment. One of the most profound geopolitical implications is the possibility of new maritime borders. As East Africa becomes more isolated from the rest of the continent, coastal nations like Kenya, Tanzania, and Ethiopia could see their influence grow or diminish based on their proximity to these new coastlines. While some countries might benefit from newfound access to sea routes, others could face economic and logistical challenges as they are cut off from trade routes that once connected them to the mainland. The formation of a new ocean and the division of East Africa from the rest of the continent may cause tensions, but it could also pave the way for regional cooperation, especially in maritime trade and natural resource management. The coming decades could see the emergence of new regional power dynamics as East Africa enters a new era of geographical and political reorganization. The potential for new islands, increased access to oceanic resources, and changes in global shipping routes all have the possibility of altering the balance of power in East Africa. With new coastlines come new economic opportunities, but also the challenge of managing these newfound resources. How will the countries in this region respond? Will there be a unified approach to dealing with the rising sea levels and the economic ramifications of these seismic events? The geopolitical future of East Africa hinges not only on the physical forces at work in the Rift Valley, but also on how the nations in the region react to the changes unfolding before them, the future of East African communities. The ongoing changes in East Africa are having a profound effect on the people who live there. The seismic activity, volcanic eruptions, and the potential for land collapse have led to a growing sense of unease among local communities. As cracks continue to appear in the earth, the livelihoods of millions are being threatened. The traditional way of life, heavily dependent on agriculture and livestock, is now at risk. As fertile farmland is replaced by cracks and fissures, villages and towns along the Rift Valley face the constant threat of earthquakes and volcanic eruptions, with entire communities being displaced as the land beneath them shifts. With seismic activity becoming more frequent, many East Africans are left wondering what their future holds. How will communities cope with the possibility of their land splitting apart? Will these communities be able to adapt to their rapidly changing environment, or will they be forced to relocate and start over elsewhere? Local authorities are struggling to keep up with the pace of change.
The safety measures that anytime the road is, they see anything developing, they close the road immediately.
And the lack of a dedicated seismic monitoring system has left residents without timely warnings about impending earthquakes and eruptions. The threat is real, and it's affecting the mental and emotional well-being of the people who live in the Rift Valley. In the face of these challenges, resilience will be key. How can local governments and international organizations step in to support these communities as they brace for the unpredictable changes ahead? As the region continues to transform, the people of East Africa will need to find ways to adapt to their changing environment. Agriculture, which has long been the backbone of the East African economy, will need to evolve, with new methods and technologies required to cope with increasingly unstable ground. How will farmers continue to cultivate the land as seismic activity and volcanic eruptions become more frequent? Will they be able to innovate and thrive in a region that seems to be in a constant state of flux? The future of East African communities will be shaped by their ability to adapt, as well as by the external support they receive from governments, scientists, and humanitarian organizations. The global consequences of East Africa's transformation, the tectonic forces at work in East Africa, aren't just going to affect the region, they could have global consequences. As the rift continues to widen and East Africa splits away from the mainland, the seismic events could trigger a cascade of environmental, economic and political ripple effects. The transformation of East Africa will be one of the most significant geological events in the history of the planet, and its impacts could be felt far beyond the continent. From changes in global trade routes to the redistribution of marine resources, East Africa's ongoing transformation will reshape the way the world operates. Perhaps the most significant global consequence of East Africa's split will be the potential changes in climate patterns. As new ocean waters flood the Rift Valley, the weather systems in the region will shift dramatically, possibly influencing the global climate. The rise in oceanic temperatures and the potential changes in wind patterns could impact weather systems across Africa, Asia, and even Europe. The sudden formation of a new ocean and the tectonic shifts in East Africa could affect sea levels, change current flow patterns.
Let's say two sections of Africa, of the continent, have started to move apart, and this change is associated with the East African Rift system.
And disrupt ecosystems that depend on the status quo. The effect of this new ocean could also alter global fisheries and marine ecosystems, potentially creating new opportunities for resources, but also threatening existing food chains and biodiversity. The ongoing changes in East Africa are a stark reminder that the world is constantly evolving. As the rift widens and new coastlines emerge, the world will need to adapt to the consequences of this seismic revolution. Global systems, from trade and agriculture to geopolitics and environmental policies, will need to account for the changes taking place in East Africa. How prepared is the world to respond to these dramatic shifts? And how can we ensure that the millions of people affected by this transformation are supported throughout the coming decades? East Africa's future is not just its own. It is intertwined with the future of the world. As East Africa continues to undergo this dramatic transformation, the world must brace for the changes that lie ahead. With the potential for a new ocean to form and entire regions to shift, the implications will ripple across the globe, affecting everything from climate patterns to geopolitics. The people of East Africa face an uncertain future, but their resilience will be key in navigating this seismic change. What happens next will not only shape the future of East Africa, but also the course of Earth's geological history. As we watch these changes unfold, it's clear that the world is constantly evolving, and the future of East Africa may just be the start of something much bigger. What do you think about the ongoing transformation of East Africa? Do you believe it will truly split into two? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, like and share this video. And be sure to subscribe for more updates on this fascinating story.